Hello and welcome to this lecture. So in this journey of remaining the anonymous in the network, we'll start off just changing the MAC addresses of our machine. So first of all, we'll see what is this IP addresses and MAC addresses and what are the components of the network first. So let me open this picture here real quick, and you will see that these pictures have these IP addresses and MAC addresses over here. So these MAC addresses are the components of a hardware. Basically, it will identify each of these hardware uniquely. That means if you have any computer on the network, each of these devices will have different MAC address and different IP address. So if you want to send packets, basically the information packet is the collection or basically a part of the information, and if you want to send the packet from one PC to another PC, in this case it can be from source PC to the destination PC, it should be first based on this MAC address. So this packet will have the header, and that will contain the source MAC address and destination MAC address. So this MAC address is very important because this is the way in which the network will be sure that the packet will reach to the destination. So it is very important MAC address. And the next one is IP address, and we all know about the IP address. It is the way to remain connected in the network, and IP address within the network continuously changes, but the MAC address remain unique because it comes with the hardware manufacturer. So each of these hardware manufacturer will give different IP addresses, or basically the MAC addresses, not the different IP address. It will be different MAC addresses will be assigned to each of these components, or basically to the PC, so that they will be identified uniquely. So you can say each of these components, maybe the router or the PC, you can also connect the mobile devices. Each of these will have different MAC address or unique MAC address so as to identify them in the network. So that is very important. Now you can see that this MAC address will just track you back because this will be unique, and that means it can track you back if you do any illegal activities through that machine. So let's see how to change this MAC addresses temporarily, or basically if you want to get into the system that has block listed, or basically that has just filters which will just filter all of the unnecessary devices from that system. That means you can change to this new MAC addresses so as to get into that system and just pen test that system. So there is very much advantage of just using this macchanger. So first of all, we'll see the services that is provided by the Kali Linux, which is a macchanger application, and in the next upcoming lecture we'll make our new macchanger, which is our own application with the help of Python. So first of all, let me just go over here, and now let me just show you by opening the terminal. So I'll just create a new window, and this window will be the new terminal over here. So what I want to do is first of all, let me just zoom in over here, and now we have to make use of this ifconfig. So it is ifconfig. So if I just hit enter, you will see these network interfaces over here. So what this network interface represents is your network card. So if you see here, you will have ETO0 and yellow and WLAN 0. So this WLAN 0 is a wireless USB adapter which I have connected externally. You can also connect it externally, and you will also see this WLAN 0 will have these IP addresses and these MAC addresses. So let me just clear this out first, and you can see it has ETO0. So this is your virtual interface that comes with this virtual box. So you can just have this internet connection through this connected wire. So if you see here, it has a wired connector. So this interface represents that wired connection, and this WLAN 0 is for the wireless connection, and this is not the case that is given by the virtual box. It should be just connected from the external USB adapter, and basically this is wireless connection. You can see I have both of these, wired and wireless. So you can see this is wireless over here, so that I have this WLAN 0 over here. So let's see how we can just change this MAC address of WLAN 0, which is our external USB adapter, to new one. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, if you want to do that, we have to first of all make this interface go down. That means we have to just terminate this action of this WLAN 0, or basically we have to stop this network interface for now. So in order to do that, we have this command over here, that is ifconfig WLAN 0, which is your interface, and down is the method in order to stop this interface. So when I just hit enter, it will just do its work, and now our interface is down. So after you make your interface down, you have to use this macchanger method, and if I say help here as an attribute, or if I just give the argument as a help to this macchanger, it will just give us some of the options that is available with the macchanger. So you can see the help option, obviously we get this help and the version, and the next one is the show method is going to print us the MAC address, and if you just see here, it has the ending, it has another, and the main important part over here is this random one and list one and the MAC. So you can also assign your own MAC addresses by using this macchanger. You can also get the random MAC addresses by this R argument. You can also make this permanent MAC addresses, that is reset to original permanent hardware MAC. So let's make use of this one of this option that is available over here using the macchanger. So just remember, if you want to use this macchanger, you have to first stop your interface. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, let me just clear this one, and we'll just now make use of random method, which will just generate the random macchanger. And now I'll just say that after using this macchanger, I'll just say R argument, which will just assign the random MAC to our machine, and after that I have to give the interface, which is WLAN 0. So if I hit enter, now you can see the current MAC address was this, and the permanent was obviously the current one, but the new MAC was assigned over here. Now after you change that MAC address, you have to roll back your that interface up. That means you have to just start your interface again. So in order to do that, you have to pass that ifconfig or ifconfig. ifconfig is for the Windows and ifconfig is for this Kali, and after that I have to just say WLAN 0 and up. So if you do say down, it is going to just stop that. If we just type up, now our interface is up and running. So now if I say ifconfig again, then you will see the new change in the Ethernet over here, which is our MAC address. So this was assigned, which is the new MAC address here. You can clearly see in this WLAN 0, the new MAC address was assigned. So this is randomly assigned. You can also make use of that set method in order to set your own MAC addresses to this interface. So now we'll make our Python code in order to perform this. So we'll just see how we can just change or basically make this macchanger application with our own code. So before doing that, we have to have some logic. So we'll say that instead of this macchanger, so macchanger is basically the application or the package that comes pre-installed with the Kali Linux, and this is bunch of our Python code that we don't want to have clone on our application. So we'll just make a logic now, our own logic, in order to just perform this macchanger. So if you see here, first of all, in order to just change the MAC of any machine, we have to first of all down that interface. That means again we'll just say down, and after that the new method that I'm going to call, let me just clear first, the new method I'm going to call is ifconfig. Okay, ifconfig, and now I have to say again the interface, which is WLAN 0 and hardware interface, that is for SW, and ether. So ether was the argument that was associated with our interface MAC addresses. So after you just assign that ether, now it's time to assign our new MAC addresses. So in this case, I'll just say 00112233, okay, 3344 and 55. So these will be our MAC addresses. Now if I just hit enter, and if I again roll back our WLAN 0 to the up and running position, and if I just enter okay over here, if I say again if config, then you will see we have now again changed this ether, which is obviously the MAC address of this interface, again to this value. So we are not going to use the idea of the macchanger, but we'll just make use of this idea in our Python code to change the MAC addresses from the original one to this one, or basically that is entered by the user. So let's see how we can just implement it, and we'll do that in the next lecture. See you in the next one. So in the previous lecture we just saw how we can just change the MAC addresses from the two techniques. So one was using the application that comes prepackaged with this Kali Linux, that is the macchanger, and the next one was our own idea, that is this ifconfig. So what we just did here was we just made our WLAN 0, which was the interface, to change its MAC addresses by changing its argument to that field what we want to just include. So you can see completely over here we just change from that original MAC addresses to this MAC addresses what we just assigned over here. So let's make use of this technique in this and upcoming lecture to make our complete macchanger application. So before that, first of all, we have to just talk about some of the module that we are going to use in this lecture. So before that, we have to install the PyCharm. So in order to install the PyCharm on your machine, open your Firefox. Let me just remove this one, and you can simply say something like download PyCharm, and you will get this link. I have already downloaded. Okay, I'll just go to this link, which is JetBrains link. You will see that it has the platforms here, that is Windows, Mac OS X or Linux. Based on your platform, just click on Linux, and you have to download this community version. Press on this download, it will just give you this link, and you have to first unzip it. So basically this will be zip file, and you have to first extract this. So after extracting, you will get the folder that should look like something, maybe this. So that should be this folder. So let me go to the desktop, and after extracting, I got this PyCharm community folder. I get into it, and basically after going into the bin, so there is a bin, and I just open the terminal right over here because I want to just navigate to this directory. After that, you have to just press sh and this PyCharm folder. So you have to open this PyCharm application, which should be done with this PyCharm. You can also use the tab in order for the auto completion. Just press enter now, and after just pressing enter, you will just open this PyCharm application. So after you just open that PyCharm, you will have to first create the new project. Just create the new project, press on that new project, and you'll just get this Python file, or basically you'll just get this project at first. And in order to create the Python file, you have to go to the new and on this Python file. We have done this in the Windows in the previous couple of lectures before, so that shouldn't be any problem for you. So now first of all, what I'm gonna do is, first of all, I'll just say regular expression, import me a regular expression. We need that. So you know what is the use of the regular expression, that is finding, searching or matching the patterns from the string or the sequence of characters. So next module will be very important module. So if you just remember in the previous lecture, what we did was we just run this command. We just run this couple of command, that is making down, or basically just making the interface down, and running this command, and again running this command. So that you can see here we are running a 3 commands in this lecture, basically in order to change the MAC address. So we did first this command, and again this command, and again this command. So what you can see here is we are just running a bunch of a command in the terminal. So what we can normally do now is we have to run this command, or basically we have to make this command from any module so that it will be executed at once. So that is our main purpose. So in order to just run this type of command in this command line interface, which we normally call the terminal, so there is module, and I want you to show that module. That is very important module in Python, that is sub process module. It is very much important module, and this is platform independent. That means you can run this in the Linux or Windows, or in Linux, or basically in a Mac also. So this is sub process module. So we have to import this sub process module real quick. So let me just go back to the PyCharm again, and I'll just say import me sub process. So this is the way to import any module to your project, and this is inbuilt process. So that means you don't need to just install these packages manually. So get back here again. Let me just go again here, and let me just open the Firefox, and you can see that we have this sub process module, and there are bunch of a method. We are not going to directly show you what this method is in a minute, but we'll see one by one if we just get that method used in our lecture. So before that, I want to show you this method, or basically not this method, I want to show you this method, check output method, because now we are going to use this check output method. So you can see the documentation right over here saying that this command basically run with the arguments. So arguments here can be your network interface, which is bunch of a network interface, which is basically Ethio0, yellow, or WLAN 0. So this will be your argument. So which one you want to change? So if you want to change the MAC addresses of Ethio0, you have to enter this one. If you want WLAN 0, you have to change this one. So that is your arguments. So basically what it is saying is it will run the command with argument and return its output as a byte string. That means it will just return as a string. Okay, that is useful. So let's go back to our PyCharm and let's do some coding. So first of all, in this lecture we are not going to directly change the MAC addresses of the machine, but before that I want to show you how we can execute the command, like this command. So if I just go again here, and what if I want to do something like ifconfig, and if I hit enter, this will just get us. So if I say something like ifconfig and only the WLAN 0, this is the information that we get, because we are just running this command in the terminal. So we want to do same as this but with the PyCharm now. So we want to run this whole command and get the MAC addresses from this Python code in this lecture, and in the next lecture we'll just change this MAC addresses to something that is entered by the user, or maybe custom, or maybe we can also assign the random numbers to that MAC addresses. So first of all, we have imported the two modules which are important modules. So next is I'll just make output. So now we have to make use of this sub process module. Just give a period in order to make the method use of that process, which is the module. And I have already shown you before that I am going to use this check output method, which is right here. And let's go back to the PyCharm again, and I'll just say check output. So this is the method I'm going to use, and basically this will run with the arguments. So I'm not going to use arguments yet, but I'll just make a list. So in this list I'm going to run, or basically I'm going to type a command. So if you just remember, the command was ifconfig, and after that I'll just give a space, and I want to, okay, basically I have to just put this addition operator after this double quote, and I have to just join this with WLAN 0 because I want the MAC addresses of this WLAN 0. So after that I want this cell be true. So this cell is basically your command line interface. So we have created this check output method to uses. So that means we have run this command now in the cell, and now we are getting the output. So from this output I want to only search the MAC address. So because if you see here, if you just run this output, you are going to get this bunch of information, but we don't want this, because in this lecture, in the upcoming lecture, we are only interested is in this ether part, which is the MAC addresses. So we are going to extract this, and you know what is the way to get the information from that string. It is obviously with the regular expression, because we are going to search, we are going to match. So we have to now say that current MAC address. So the current MAC address should be searched from this regular expression, and I am going to use the search method, and you know why, because this is going to give a global search. If I just say match, it is not going to work because that will do the local search. I want the global search. So now you know how to just write the pattern. So you know how to write the pattern, that is with this R and double quote. After that I want any word that is, okay, let me show you this pattern now. I haven't talked about this pattern before. So this is saying that /w can be any character. So this is for any character, that can be digit, that can be number. So MAC address also can be the number and can be the digit. So that means we'll have this, okay, let me just really type faster. So /w and again colon. I'll just give you the example and you'll just understand what I'm doing here. So again colon, let me say /w, maybe we are typing the 5 time, so last time now. So you could see we have now this 6 times. So this 1 2 3 4 5 6, if I go back, let me just copy our MAC addresses and I'll show you what is happening here. So let's go back to the PyCharm. Let me just go down and let me just paste it here. So let me just comment this out again. So you could see what we are doing here is this WW means any character. So this WW represents this 2-digit. There is colon in between them. In this colon, so we are just searching for the MAC addresses in that whole line of this output of this command. So after we just pass the pattern, and the next argument to this search is going to be the string where you want to search. So in this case we don't have any sentence, rather we have the output, because we want to search in the output of this command. So I'm just searching that in this output and just closing here. So this output can be in the form of any of these integer or maybe the boolean. So instead of just having the error, let's make this typecasted to the string for removing any error if we just came to any. So we just did something like we just get the MAC addresses now from that command. We just ran the command and we just got the MAC addresses. So let's print that MAC address now. So you can clearly see now what we just did. We just ran this command in the shell. We just get that MAC addresses with this pattern. We just printed that MAC addresses. So let me just run real quick now. Run this macchanger. You'll get output right here. So this is your MAC addresses. So you can also see if this is true or not by just going over here, and you could clearly see these were the MAC addresses that we just changed back here. So we just managed to make a Python code which will just get the current MAC addresses by running this command on this cell and getting the output, and we search for the MAC address and get the MAC address. So in the next lecture we'll see how these MAC addresses can be manipulated and how we can just change with the help of some of the techniques and some of the modules. So in the next lecture we'll see how to just change these MAC addresses. So that will be interesting lecture. See you in the next one. Welcome to this lecture. Now let's see how we can just change the MAC addresses. So first of all, what you need to do is again open that PyCharm that we did in the previous lecture. So you could see we just see how we can get the current MAC address of this machine from this code. But now what we need to do is change the MAC address. So before that, you could see this code looks like basically in the single line, and basically this doesn't define the perfect code because it is not inside a certain block. That means this look a bunch of very dirty coding. So first of all, we will make the function that is going to do this for us. So I'll just make this current MAC function, and this function is going to just return us these MAC addresses. So let me just copy again everything and let me just paste it down here in this current MAC, and instead of just printing over here, you can also print. Okay, we'll just print here. So this is basically our current MAC that we did in the previous lecture, but for now we have to now see how we can change the MAC addresses, and this is very important. So first of all, let me just go back to the documentation, and I have already shown you before that if you want to execute any command on this terminal or a shell, you have to use this shop process module. So we have already seen the action, that is check output method, already seen that how this executes the command and return the output, which was our MAC address. Now we are going to use another method, and this is very important method, which is this call method. So let's see what this tells us about. So first of all, it is saying it will run the command, okay, described by the arguments. Okay, we are just passing the arguments and it will just run that command based on that argument, and it will wait for command to complete and then return the return code attribute. That means if we just see and go back what we did before, so we are just out of this terminal, so let me just go again. So if you see what we did in the previous lecture was, first of all, we just did something like ifconfig and wlan 0 down. So basically this was the command in order to get our interface down before actually changing the MAC addresses. So if you see and if you just analyze this command used to be the first command in our list of commands that was used to change the MAC addresses. So if you see here, if you just do something like before actually just writing this down statement, if you just started just actually using this macchanger or any other maybe this command ifconfig, and if I want to just change the WLAN 0 and maybe the ether part, what I'm doing, so ether part and your MAC addresses maybe 00, if you do this before actually just making your interface down, then this is not going to work. So that means the sequence of this operation is very important in order to work with the macchanger. So first of all, you have to always down your network card. After that, you will just change your MAC address, and after that you will just make your network interface again running. So that is the sequence of the operation that should be executed, and this call method is just saying us that. So before actually just jumping on the another argument or another command, it will wait for that command to complete, and after that is executed, if we just get the return code, that means the first command is executed, it will just go to the second command and it will just run that command. So let's see how this works and how this is basically going to give us the new MAC addresses. So first of all, I'll just define the method to do that, and I'll just say change the MAC. So I'll just give interface over here, and next thing I want to give is new MAC. So what we just did here is before that I have to just input something from the user, that is your interface and your new MAC. So I'll just say input, and I have to give the message to the user, enter your interface or network interface. So this will be the information. They will just give the information. Let me just strip this because we don't want any blank spaces, and basically this will just give us the perfect interface option or input from the user. And I also want the new MAC addresses that is inputted by the user. So I want enter the new MAC address you want to change. Okay, this will be also in the string because we know anything that is from this input method will be in the string. I want to strip this too. So we have now interface and new MAC. While calling this change MAC, we'll just pass this interface and new MAC in the positional argument of this interface and new MAC. So let's go over here and let's run our Linux command to change the MAC. So you know how to just run this command. Now we are not going to use this method which is check output. Now we are going to run the next command, which will be call command. So in this call command, you have to just give this list of arguments that is in the form of list. So I'll just say ifconfig, and the next part will be your interface. So let me just convert to the string, and I'll just say interface that is passed in this MAC. And after you just pass the interface, let me run the first command we are going to get. So that command will be down command. So first of all, you have to just run this down command, and that should run in the shell. That means I'll just say the shell should be true. So this will be the first command that will be executed, and you can clearly see over here. If you see the combination, this is going to give us, let me just comment this out real quick here. So this is going to give us ifconfig. Okay, what I'm writing here, ifconfig, and basically this space is to denote this space. So next will be your interface, because this is not going to give any spaces. That means we have to just assign explicitly the spaces between these commands. And the next one after that is going to the interface. So interface will be WLAN 0 if I just enter from here. And after that interface, this is also given the explicitly spaces because we want the spaces between this WLAN 0 and down command, and after that we just enter the down. So this is the command that is from this sub process, and after this is executed, we have to just call another process again, and that is your ether process, or basically changing the main MAC addresses of this current Mac. So I'll also say ifconfig and give the space again as usual, and add the interface which will be typecasted to this string. I'll just say interface, and after that you know what to do. We have done this many times before. So now I have to give space again because I want this ether attribute or the argument to be changed to the MAC address. So I'll just say again this should be changed to the MAC addresses that we just input. So I'll just say str, and here I'll just pass new MAC, and let me just give one space again over here. So this will be end of this statement again, and after you just pass this command, you have to say that this is shell and it should be true. So we have command here that is executed in order to change our MAC address basically. So next one would be to make your basically interface up and running. So in order to do that, you know what to call, that is this up method. So instead of just writing again, let me just copy this, because the change between this statement and the statement we are writing is only the up to down, or basically down to up. So I'll just say up. So you can see we have now changed the MAC addresses, and now we have got this new MAC addresses entered from the user. We'll just send this to change MAC, and we'll see change in the MAC address. So what I'm going to do is now I have to call this change MAC, and that should be done over here. I'll just pass the interface in the place of interface. I'll just pass the new MAC in the place of new MAC. So we have done this. So let's see if this works or not. So before that, let me say current MAC. So I'll just pass the current MAC over here, and we'll just input that, and we'll just say current MAC and change this. So before current MAC, let me just say that first of all this will be old MAC is, and let me just format this with this current MAC. Let me just close this. So now we have this old MAC address. Okay, I'm saying address. Old MAC address is formatted over here. We'll just see that current MAC, and after that we'll just change that current MAC. So before that I have to just see the way it is called. Okay, it is first current MAC is called, and after that we have called the change MAC. Okay, that is fine. So let's run this MAC changer and let's see what is so network interface I want to change is WLAN 0. So into the new MAC address you want to change. Okay, I want to change to this MAC address. Let's go with another MAC addresses to change, and let me just run this one more time. So let me just press to run again, and let me say the interface will be again WLAN 0, which is my wireless card. Enter the new MAC address. Let me say 1233, let me say 45, let me say 9293 22, let me see. Okay, it is 6 part, it is having the 6 part. Let me just hit enter, and let's see if this is working or not. So it is perfectly working now. Let's go, and now let's only check for the current MAC. So let's remove calling this one, and let's see if this works or not. So let's see if we have changed from this MAC addresses, which was this current old MAC, to this. So obviously we have done this, but let me just show. So okay, it is again asking, but it doesn't matter, we don't need that. Run this again, now it will show you the MAC addresses, that is the new MAC addresses we just assigned from this current, or basically from this change MAC. So we just found that we just execute this command on this cell and we just change the current MAC to the MAC addresses that we just entered from here. So this is the perfect example how to change the MAC addresses. But you can see here this MAC addresses was entered from the user. What if we want the random MAC addresses? So we will just implement that random MAC addresses assignment in the next lecture, which will be also the interesting lecture. So see you in the next one. Welcome to this lecture. So in the previous lecture we just implemented this method, change MAC method. So this was basically by entered from the user. So user will input the MAC addresses to change, and based on that we'll just change the MAC addresses, and we also saw the current MAC addresses. But now what we want is, instead of just input from the user, we want to include both of these. So there can be also random MAC change. So user do not need to do anything. They will simply choose the option either to change manually or randomly. So let's see how this can be done. So first of all, let me just define a process which will just generate the random MAC address. So this will just generate the random MAC address, this method. So I have an idea that we can just generate the random MAC addresses by just combining two types over here. So generally the MAC addresses is assigned by the Cisco and a Dell. So first of all, we'll just make a list of a number that our MAC addresses are basically started with, or basically the devices MAC addresses start with. So it normally starts with these 3 characters. So let me show you here. And the next one would be 96, and these are legit, so you cannot change this number. This is the Cisco legitimate or genuine numbers which starts our MAC addresses. So next one would be Dell. So I'll also make these Dell starting addresses, and first one is obviously 00. Again the next one will be 14, and the next one would be, let me say, 22. So this will be the starting MAC address. So next thing what we want is, we'll just take anything from this Cisco or Dell, and this will be 3 characters. So first 3 pairs, so no, not only the characters. So if you see here, these first 3 will be the pairs of either Cisco or a Dell, and after this we'll just make these 3 numbers, or basically these 3 pairs, 3 last pairs, on a random selection. So let's go down here and let's say that MAC address will be the choice. So this is inbuilt method which is going to give us the choice between either Cisco or either Dell. So we have made a choice over here, which will just see that the first pair, or basically the first pair, will be from Cisco and a Dell defined hardware, this Cisco or a Dell, and the last 3 pair will be generated randomly. So let's generate that random last 3 pairs. So I'll just say for I in range, and it is 3, because we want basically the loop to execute 3 times, because we just want the 3 pairs, last 3 pairs. So let's go over here again. So in this range, what we're gonna do is, we are going to make 1 pair at a time. So I'll just say choice, and again here I want to convert with the string. So basically we want rand int. So if you have heard about this rand int, we haven't imported that module first. So I have to import, and I'm just not interested in importing only random module. I just don't do something like random, because if you do that random, you have to call from random again. So instead of doing that, I'll just say from random import me choice, and I also want to import the next thing, and that is your rand int. So now we have imported both of this method from this random module, and you can check the documentation of working of this. So randint basically gives you 1 integer at a time based on this number that you inserted in between here. So it should be the range inside this parenthesis. So I want the number from 0 to 9. So it can be any one number from 0 to 9. It will be random. Obviously choice will, or basically this rand int will generate us a random number. So next pair I want is going to be again from this choice. Let's see, we have to again do the same thing, that is again one. Okay, one, what I'm doing, so it is should be randint, and here I want again 0 to 9 again, and the next statement will be very important statement because I want to add both of these over here. So I'll just say 1 plus 2, and here I have to first of all make this string. So let me just add this first, and let's convert this to a string. So let me just typecast over here. Now we have added this 1 and 2, which will be just getting us a 3 pair. So you can see what we just did. For each pair, this loop will run, and it will generate this first number from this 1 and the second number from this 2, and we just added over here to make one complete pair. And this loop will run 3 times. That means we'll just get three pairs of the number, which will be random basically, because this is randint. So the next thing is very important, and now the next thing will be to append to this MAC addresses that we just created over here. So you could see this will be MAC address, and I want this MAC address, basically I have to append because this is a list, and I want to append, let me say this 3. So this should be 3, that should be appended to MAC addresses. But if you remember, till now we are also making these all of the numbers but without this colon in between them. So we made successfully this number which will be random, but they don't have this MAC address, or basically this colon in between this number. So now we have to make this colon in between them. So in order to make that, you have to remember about the join method. It was very important method. I have just told you that before, and that is going to be here returned. And let me just concatenate it with join method, and let me add MAC address. So what we just did here, basically, let me just open my ideally and let me show you what is happening over here. So if I just say something like, let me just join, and let me just call this join method. Okay, join method in maybe the iterables. So let me say A, B, C, D is my iterable. If I hit enter, you could see that this colon was inserted in between them. So it was not inserted at the beginning, it was not inserted in the middle. This is what we just need, because we want this join, or basically this colon, to be inserted in between this number. So we just inserted in between this number inside this MAC addresses, and we just return that MAC addresses from this random MAC. So we just now call this MAC addresses. So instead of just making here that is to call manually, let's make one conditional flow right here. So what I'm gonna do here is I'll just check if maybe print some messages first. Print messages like enter 1 for manual changing of MAC address, and 2 for random MAC address. So this will be message that will be just printed over here, but we now need the input because we want to have this 1 or 2 inputted by the user. So that can be done, let me say input, and I'll just say imp, and I'll just input now, that is the number. So we'll have the number, but just remember this will be string because input will just get the string. So after we just get the imp, I'll just check if imp is equal 1. So you could see I'm not writing this 1 because this will be the integer, and the input that is given by this input method will be in the form of a string. That means I'll just put 1. Now we'll make the flow control in order to just see if the user want the random MAC address or the MAC address that is inputted by the user. So if the input is 1, what we're gonna do is we'll simply see the manual changing for this. So that means we have to now call this MAC change or change MAC with this interface and the new MAC. So I'll just say change MAC for me with this interface, and basically we have to pass the new MAC. So next thing is okay, if they input 1, then only we'll just get the input. So that makes sense. So let me just grab this and let me just go over here, and now we'll just change the MAC, and it is showing error. Just go over here. So the next thing what we want is to check the input for 2, or basically I'll just say elif imp is again the next digit, that will be 2 in this case. And if it is that case, then we have to first call that MAC random, and I'll say random will be the MAC, and I'll just call this MAC random. And after I just call this MAC random, so we just made this file over here saying that if input is 1, then we'll just change the MAC. If input is 2, then that means there should be the random. So before that, let me just print that random MAC 2, because I want to see what the random is, basically what the MAC was set, and we'll see the MAC that is set from this random basically the random MAC method. So now next thing what you need to do is, you can see we have an error over here, that is because we have to set this inside the method. So I'll just make this inside the method because we have called the method over here, if you see. So I'll just put this inside the main method, that is our main method. Let me just paste it down here. You could see we have resolved the error now. So it's time to now call this main method. So you could see I have kept this interface outside of this main, because we have to also get this interface inputted from the user, so as to just get the interface. And because in both of the case, you can see in the change MAC basically with the random, and basically the MAC address that is inputted from the user manually, they both need the interface. So I've just decided to just input the interface before, and that will be with this option that is input by the user. So next thing what you need to do is, you have to now call this main method which has this program. So main program our is in this main method. So let's call this main method over here. So now what I'm going to do is, we are going to use this convention over here, if name equal main. And if you see what this does is, inside here I'm going to call this main method. So in this is very important statement right here. What this does is, basically it will set this special variable which is name first, and second thing, it is going to execute every code that is over here, and it has the main method. That means it is going to call this main method, and this main method will call some of these method, which is change MAC, change MAC again with this random MAC method. So this is our complete program. So let's see how this works. So okay, we are getting some error. Let's see what is the error about. So let me just remove this one. Let's run this real quick and see what is the error about. So it is saying change MAC is having the problem. So okay, why it is having a problem? Okay, what we just did, there is two defined main. So let's remove this main. Okay, so now we have rectified this problem. Let's see how this goes. So let me just run our macchanger. It is saying what you need. So I'll just say enter 1 for the manual changing of the MAC address, or 2 for the random MAC address. So I want the random MAC address option, so I'll just say 2. So I just need the random MAC address, so let me just press 2 over here. Let me hit enter. Then it will say enter your network interface. My network interface is WLAN 0. I want to change this one, and you could see now we have changed to this new MAC address. You can check it by going over here, and let's create the new window or new terminal. Open the new terminal. ifconfig to see over here, and this is our new MAC address. You could clearly see over here, and this is done by using this program. So we completed our macchanger program. In this lecture we saw how to make our random MAC address and the MAC address that can be also used from the input which is given by the user. So we saw how to make use of this swap process. So this was the important module to work with, because this will just execute your code in the cell with this call method. And the difference between this call method, and you could see in this check output, this is going to run in a line basically. So this is the important, because this will care about the sequence and this does not care about the sequence. This both will just run the arguments based on what is just passed inside this parenthesis, and it will execute in this cell which we have just given as true. So we made use of this swap process, which was important module to learn about here. We just made this random module to just make the random MAC address over here. So this will be wrap for this lecture. We just made a complete macchanger in this lecture. So this was interesting section. So see you in the next one.